friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Laura. This is the Last Minute Laura channel, and when you come here, you can usually find me making something or doing something crafty. Today, we are going to get started on another baby project. So the idea that I have is to create a cardigan out of granny squares. So I have a bunch of granny squares that I pre-made. I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing with them, but I knew that I wanted to make something with granny squares, so I just went ahead and made a few. I'm gonna show you how I made these granny squares so that you can make them also. Then we're gonna put it together into a little baby cardigan. And if that sounds interesting to you, keep watching. So for this project, you're going to need a 2.5mm crochet hook, you're going to need a yarn needle, and you're going to need some yarn. I'm using about a number 3 weight yarn, probably a DK weight number 3. I'm using some wool that I have, but you can use a number 4 weight if you want. It's gonna end up a little bit chunkier if you do that. I would recommend for this to use a number 3 weight just because the 2.5mm hook is quite small and it'll create this nice sort of flowy fabric. We want it to have this nice sort of gappy give. For this project, we're going to be making 12 granny squares. So I'm gonna show you the 2 different granny square styles that I'm using for my cardigan, and then you'll make 12 of them, and then we'll put the cardigan together at the end of that. So for this project, you're going to need 12 granny squares. If you have a granny square pattern that you like, you can go ahead and just make 12 of them. Just aim for about 4 inches across. So you're going to want about 4 inches by 4 inches for your granny squares. If you have a pattern that you like, you can go ahead and use that. But like I said, I am going to show you the 2 different styles that I'm doing for this project. So let's start with this granny square. As you can see, it starts with a circle and then it builds out into a square. So to get started, we're going to do a slip knot. Next, chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, we're going to slip stitch into the first chain that we made at the beginning there. And we're going to slip stitch that together to join the round. Now we've got a little round here. Now that we've got that round, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. That chain 3 is going to represent a double crochet. Now we're going to double crochet into the center of that round. So find the middle of that chain 4 donut that you made, get the hook in there, and complete a double crochet. There we go, just like that. Now we're going to double crochet. So we're going to want 12 double crochets into the round. We've got 2 right now, 1 and 2, because that chain 3 represents a double crochet, and then number 2 there. So we need 10 more double crochets into that same chain space for a total of 12 stitches around. So just double count, make sure you've got 12 total. And then slip stitch the round together at the top of that chain 3 that we started the round with. Just gonna slip stitch like that. And now you can see we've got a circle. You can pull on that tail of yarn and it'll help close up your circle. Now we're gonna start the next round with another chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. So here is where we are going to turn it into a square. We're going to start by double crocheting into the first 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. And now we're going to double crochet into the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to chain 2 again, 1 and 2. Now we're going to double crochet into the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. 3. Then we're going to chain 2 again, 1 and 2. And then we'll double crochet into the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll chain 2, 1 and 2. And then we're going to slip stitch to join the round. We'll slip stitch at the top of the chain 3 that we began the round with. And guess what? The hardest part is over. That is the hardest part of starting a granny square. Now we're going to do round number 3. So for round number 3, we're going to start with a chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll turn the work around. Now you can see this chain 2 space. We've got 4 of them, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. These are going to be the corners of our granny square. So to keep that going, what we're going to want to do is 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets in each of the corners. So we're going to start by doing 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and then a chain 2, 1 and 2, and then 2 more double crochets into that same chain 2 space. And you can see now we've made up our first corner. Now what we're going to do is double crochet into these 3 double crochet stitches. So double crochet 1, 2, and 3. And now we are at the corner again, so we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets in that corner stitch. So 1, 2, and then chain 2, 1 and 2, and then 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2. And now we've got our second corner done. Ta-da! Now we're going to double crochet into those next 3 stitches. The flat end, we're going to double crochet across. 1, 2, and 3. And now we are at a corner again, so we're going to do 2 double crochets into that corner. 1 and 2, and then chain 2, 1 and 2, and then 2 more double crochets into that corner. 1 and 2. And there we go. Now we've got our third corner done. We're going to double crochet into those next 3 double crochet stitches to make our way to the final corner. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And now we're at the corner again, so we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets into that corner stitch. 1, 2, chain 1, chain 2, and then 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2. And now we've got to make it over to our final corner space. So we're going to do 2 double crochets, because if you'll remember, we started our row with 3 chain stitches. That makes up a double crochet. So we only need to do 2 double crochets to make our way over to that last stitch. So there's 1 and there's 2. And now we're going to join our round at the top of that chain 3 with a slip stitch. Just like that, and then we will chain 1, chain 2, chain 3, and turn it around. And now we're on round number 4. For round number 4, we're going to double crochet across the row until we reach the corner. Now that we've reached the corner, we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets in that corner stitch. And there's the corner. Now we're going to double crochet across to the next corner. From rows number 4 through 6, you're going to just keep this process moving the exact same way. So double crochet across until you reach a corner. At a corner, you should do 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, and then double crochet across to the next corner. When you reach the beginning of your round, you'll connect with a slip stitch at the top of the chain 3. Each of these rounds is also going to begin with a chain 3. We're going to do just 6 rows for this project for each of the granny squares, so it's not a super tedious long project in terms of how much time you're going to have to take making these squares. They come out pretty quick, and they're great because they're something that you can make on the go. If you've only got a few minutes here and there, you can make a granny square and then come back to it later to put it all together. And once you finish your 6 rows, you will be left with a very cute little granny square. As you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and our final measurement for these granny squares should be just about 4 inches by 4 inches, or about 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. And you're left with this really cute detail of a line for the corners. Isn't that sweet? All right, let's make the second square. So this is the second style of granny square we're gonna make. It begins fairly similarly to the first one, but as you can see, it's got a lot more of these little holes, and that's because we work in sets of 3 double crochets separated by chain 1 stitches. So let's jump into that one now. This one starts the same way as the other one with a slip knot, followed by a chain 4. So we're gonna do a slip knot, chain 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're gonna slip stitch the round together at that first chain stitch, which will make that little donut hole. And then we're gonna do the same thing we did for the first one, chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And this is where it gets a little different than the first one. So that still represents a double crochet. Now we're gonna do 2 more double crochets into that donut, into the middle of that chain 4 donut we made. So 1 and 2. And now we're going to go straight into making a corner. So we don't start with a full round of stitches, we just go right into making a corner. So we're gonna do chain 2 here. 1 and 2. And then we're going to do 3 double crochets back into the middle of that donut. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're at another corner, so we're gonna do a chain 2, 1 and 2. And then 3 more double crochets into the middle of that donut. 1, 2, and 3. And then another corner, 1 and 2, that's a chain 2. And then we're gonna do 3 more double crochets into the middle of that donut. 1, 2, and 3. And we'll finish off the round by doing a chain 2, 1 and 2. Now we're gonna slip stitch to the top of the chain 3 we started our round with to join that round. And you can see it's already a little square. So the first one started off with a circle. This one starts off really early with a little square. From here, we're gonna chain up 3, 1, 2, and 3, and turn the work around. So now we're on round number 2. For this one, we are going to start working into the corner. We're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. So 1, and 2. That makes up 3 double crochets because the chain 3, sorry, counts as a double crochet. And then we'll chain 2, 1 and 2. And then we will double crochet 3 more times into that corner. 1, 2, and 3. And there we go, we've got our first corner. And now, instead of crocheting across these stitches, we're just going to do a chain 1, skip all those middle stitches, and then go straight into the next corner. And in that corner, we're going to do a 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3. And then chain 2, 1 and 2. And then 3 double crochets into that corner again. 1, 2, and 3. And there we go, we've got our second corner there now. And again, we're gonna skip these double crochets here, but we're gonna do a chain 1 to skip over them. And then we're gonna do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into that next corner. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2. And then 3 double crochets again. 1, 2, and 3. And now we've got 3 corners. So from here we're going to do another chain 1, and we're going to skip over all of these double crochet stitches here and go straight into the next corner with a 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, repeat. And now we've got our 4th corner. Now to join this part to our initial chain 3, we're going to do a chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch the round together at the top of that chain 3. Just like that. And look at this teeny tiny granny square, so cute. All right, so to begin round 3, we're going to start with a chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to turn the work around, and that chain 3 counts as a double crochet, remember? And now what we're going to do is 2 more double crochets into that chain 1 space. So 1 and 2, and that makes up 3 double crochets there. We're going to chain 1 to skip over these 3 double crochet stitches, and then we're going to jump right into the corner with 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And there we go, we've got our first corner. Now we're going to be working into this chain 1 space here, so we have to chain 1 to skip over these 3 double crochets, and then we're going to double crochet 3 times into that chain 1 space. 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll chain 1 again to skip over these 3 double crochets, and then we'll work into the corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And now to skip over these 3 double crochets, we're going to do a chain 1, and then into this chain 1 space, we're going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then to skip over these 3 double crochets, we'll do a chain 1. Now we're back at another corner, so we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And there we go. Now we've got 3 corners. We're going into a chain 1 space, so don't forget you've got a chain 1 to skip those 3 double crochets, and then we'll do 3 double crochets into the chain 1 space. 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll do a chain 1 to skip over these 3. And now we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into that last corner. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 double crochets. And then to finish off the round, we're gonna finish with a chain 1 to skip over those last 3 double crochets. And then we'll join the round with a slip stitch, like that. And we're gonna work up the exact same way for, again, a total of 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows, I guess. 6 or 7 rows, whatever it takes to get you to 4 inches. But we're gonna put 3 double crochets in every space, and in every corner, we're gonna do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And don't forget to separate your 3 double crochets by chain 1 between each space. And that's how you make this second variety of granny square. So get to stitching, do some granny squares. You're gonna need a total of 12. I am going to be doing 8 in the light blue and then 4 in the dark blue. I'm gonna do my sleeves in the dark blue and my body portion in the light blue. So once you get your squares done, come on back here and let's put it all together. Okay, so simply, we're going to be putting these together to make the cardigan look like this. So this is the idea we're going for. But to do that, we're going to need to attach all of the squares together except for the front. We don't want these connected because we want it to be open like a cardigan. So we're gonna want seams here, and seams across here. And also we need to connect these squares together. So to do that, you're gonna need your yarn needle. I know that I'm going to need to connect some of them to the sleeves, but I know too that I'm going to need to connect some for the side seams. So I'm going to begin by putting 2 of the light ones together and then blanket stitching them across. I'm gonna do that to 2 pairs, blanket stitching them across. All right, so to connect these, I'm starting with my yarn needle. I'm going to find the corner stitch on both pieces, and I'm just gonna put my needle through that corner stitch, and I'm gonna just tie a knot. I'm not going to tie a super tight knot because this is not actually gonna be for holding it together. It's just to hold my yarn in place. And then I'm gonna lay that tail over my seam and I will cover it up with my stitches. And now we're gonna do a blanket stitch across. So for that, what you're gonna wanna do is pick up the first stitch after the corner through both pieces of fabric. So there's the first stitch on one side, there's the first stitch on the other side. We're gonna stab up through the bottom of the work, and you'll see there's this loop that's left behind. When you stab up, come down with your needle through that loop and then pull it nice and snug. Don't go too crazy with how tight you pull it because you don't want any puckering. And if you pull really, really tight, it's not going to look cute. You want it to look cute and blend well. So that's a blanket stitch. And I'm gonna do that all the way across. So I'm gonna pick up the second stitch on the first piece and the second stitch on the second piece. We've got that loop. And then we will put the yarn through that loop and draw it nice and snug. And there's stitch number 2. Let me try and show you just a little bit closer. So we'll grab the next stitch coming up through the bottom on the first piece and then on the second piece. Stab it through, you'll have a loop. Stick the needle down through the loop and pull closed. There we go. And if you're not comfortable with hand stitching like this, you can go ahead and single crochet or slip stitch these seams together. It doesn't really matter as long as you can get them put together. You just really need these pieces to be put together, but how you do it isn't super important. I just like the blanket stitch. I find it blends really well. The seam is not huge, and I think that it is not too hard, so I like to do the blanket stitch. But feel free to use a single crochet or a slip stitch if that's easier for you. And there is our first seam. Let me show you up close. You can see on the inside, it's like a little finished seam, and on the outside, it's completely invisible. So that's going to be the outside of the garment. So now I'm just going to do the same thing with a whole bunch of these. I'll be back when I finish doing that. Ta-da! Okay, so I sewed all of these guys together, and I also sewed the dark blue ones together. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces for my sweater. And now it's time to make it into something a little bit more sweatery. So if you look here, I've drawn a diagram of how I'm gonna put it together. So I've already put these together, these together, these together, and these together. And I have 2 that are separated. Okay, so the next step is going to be putting together the back piece. The back piece is going to be 1 rectangle. So I'm gonna start by stitching this closed. All right, now that's stitched together. We've got the back done. We've got the arms stitched together. So I'm going to now stitch from here to here. So I'm going to stitch the arm on here to here, but I'm not connecting these pieces. Not yet anyway. And then I'll stitch from here to here. So let's do that. And hey, if you're looking for a little bit more of a detailed instruction, or if you just like this bullet journal spread, join my Patreon. The link is in the description down below, and you get access to all of my bullet journal spreads. Sometimes they're patterns like this, sometimes it's ideas and artwork, sometimes it's just designs that I have in my head. Sometimes it's full-on recipes. Depends on what I'm doing that week, but you get access to all of those as well as access to the private Discord server. This is like a private chat room full of people who make things and love crafty things, and a bunch of people who just love coming to this channel for crafty inspiration. You can go there and show the projects you're working on, you can ask questions and get help, and it's just a nice place for us to share what's going on in our lives. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check the links in the description down below. Okay, let's get back to the tutorial. All right, I've sewn all of the bits together. Now it's one big flat piece, and I'm gonna grab the shoulder seams and flip it. Oh God, it's so cute already. And we are going to be seeing, ta-da! It's looking like a little cardigan now. We still have to do the seam here, the seam here, and the seam here and here, and that way it's gonna look like a cardigan. So let's do that. Light blue yarn. What I'm wondering though is if we should single crochet it together or sew it. I think let's sew it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip this upside down. I'm going to attach the dark blue yarn. I've got some of that dark blue yarn, and I'm going to blanket stitch it from the wrist to the armpit, and then I'll switch colors and blanket stitch from the armpit to the bottom hemline. That's the next plan. All right, it's the next day now, and I've finished sewing together all of my granny squares. The seams are on the outside, so I am going to put this right sides out. Turn that inside out. There we go. Look how cute it is. All right, so now we need to kind of pull it together. I have a plan that I want to use some of these buttons to do the cardigan up, but we also need to bring the sleeves in a little bit so that they kind of hold on to baby's wrists, and we need to bring the bottom in a little bit as well. So I think I want to start with that. I think I want to do the edge stitching in white. I don't know why, I just think that'll look cute. We could do it in the dark blue or the light blue, but I feel like having it in white might be a little bit cute. So I'm gonna take my 2.5mm hook. I've changed my mind. I think we're gonna use a 4mm hook for the wrists, and we're gonna do a front post, back post double crochet ribbed stitch here. That's going to significantly bring in the wrists of this sweater so that it has a little bit more of a fitted cuff. So I'm gonna use my white yarn, and I'm just going to go down to the bottom seam where the armpit lines up to, that bottom seam, and I'm going to pull up a loop with my white yarn. Let me zoom you in for this. So I'll pull up a loop with my white yarn, and then I am going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And that's gonna make up a double crochet. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to double crochet 1 time in each of the stitches all the way around. So I'm gonna double crochet between these stitches. You can see there's a space right here I can put my hook, so I'm gonna do a double crochet in there. And then there's another space here, so I'll do a double crochet in there. And then I'm gonna just do 1 double crochet in the big space between the 2 sets of 3, right there. And I'm just gonna repeat that all the way around, and that's gonna set us up for our front post, back post double crochets. If you don't know how to do a front post, back post double crochet, don't worry. I'm gonna link that in the description down below and in the iCard right now, so you can learn how to do that ribbed stitch for this project. But first, start with a round of just double crochets. It's not super important that you have a specific number of double crochets or that you put your hook in the exact spaces that I'm putting them. You just want to make sure you're getting around this sleeve with some double crochets. All right, so I've just finished my round. I'm gonna join the round with a slip stitch, and then I'm gonna chain 2, 1 and 2. And now I'm going to start my front post, back post double crochets. So I'm gonna yarn over, insert behind that whole post, and then complete a double crochet. That's a front post double crochet. And then for a back post, I'm gonna yarn over, stick my hook behind the whole work, coming up through the stitch and pulling that post back, and then complete a double crochet. And then I'm gonna do another front post, and then another back post. And I'm gonna repeat that all the way around. And that is going to create a really cute little ribbed stitch. It's a really nice rib. This front post, back post is a simple rib stitch in crochet that creates a really nice detail at the end of the cuffs of sleeves. So I am going to do that, and I'm actually going to do a total of 3 rounds around this cuff with my front post, back post double crochets, and that's going to create a good inch, maybe an inch and a half of ribbing that will create a cute little wrist for our sweater. Okay, I'm looking at this now and it's not drawing it in as much as I want. I think I'm gonna switch back to my 2.5mm hook and see if that does a better job of drawing it in. So let me just show you what that looks like. Yeah, that was a good idea. Switching back to the 2.5mm is, as you can see, it's sort of scooching, so the cuff should be a little bit tighter by the time we finish our 5 rows. So I'm gonna just finish I think I'm gonna have to do 5 rows, by the way. So not 3 rows, because it's a smaller hook. I think we're gonna have to do 5 rows of the front post, back post double crochet with the 2.5mm. So I'm gonna do that and I'll come back to show you what that looks like. So here's what we're looking like after 5 rows. I think that was a good choice to have the 2.5mm hook. You can see it sort of squishes the sleeve in, which is cute and I like it. So I'm going to finish the edge of this cuff with a row of slip stitches or a round of slip stitches, and that's just going to kind of create a little edge on there. So let's do that now. Now I'll just join that round with a slip stitch, do 1 more yarn over and pull it through. And then we'll just have to weave that end in. But let me show you this up close. You can see there's like a little stitched braided edge around the edge now. So it's a little bit cuter. And there we go. Sleeve number 1, finished. Now I'm gonna do the same thing to this sleeve. All right, so I've finished the arms. Now I've got 2 little cuffs. Oh my God, look how cute this little sweater is. Okay, and now we have to do a couple more things. We need to figure out a way to put the buttons on. And by put the buttons on, I don't mean sewing the buttons on. I mean, how are we going to have them connect? I'm thinking I'm gonna do like some crochet and then chain stitches and then crochet, chain stitches, and that'll be like a loop that holds that button on. Hopefully that's gonna work. And now we also need to do the neckline and the bottom hemline. I think I'll stitch maybe about an inch further here. Just stitch it closed so that the neckline isn't, see how wide it is. And I think I'm just gonna do some blanket stitches for maybe, let's see how many stitches I should do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think I'll go 6 stitches in on each side just to connect the shoulder seams a little bit farther in so that the neck hole is not gigantic. We want it to hold on to baby and not sort of slide off when baby is wearing it. I'll just connect the yarn. Actually, I'm gonna start by weaving weaving the end in so I don't have to weave it in after the fact. And now, like I said, I'm just gonna do some blanket stitches here to connect the shoulders. There we go, that's better, totally. So I'm going 6 stitches in total there, just to connect the shoulders, and I'm gonna just do the same thing over on this side. And there we go. So now we've got that shoulder done a little bit better. Now we can get started on the neckline. So for the neckline, I am going to start right at the corner here. Let me zoom you in. So I'm gonna start with my 2.5mm hook again, and I'm gonna use the white yarn, and I'm gonna pull up a loop right in that corner of that granny square. And then I will chain 3. 1. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I think what I'm gonna do is a full round of single crochets first around this entire raw edge. So I'm gonna connect my yarn actually at the bottom corner here, and we're gonna go with just a chain 2 to start. So I'll pull up a loop, and then I'll chain 1 with both tails. And then with just the working yarn, I will do my second chain, chain 2. And now I'm going to single crochet in each stitch, or I should say between the stitches, because I'm doing it between these double crochets. And I'm gonna single crochet up the body, all the way up to the top of the body, and then around the neckline, and then down the body, and then around the bottom hemline. And that's just gonna give us a nice structure to start our neckline ribbing, our hemline ribbing, and then eventually our buttonhole section. So let me just zoom through that, single crocheting all the way around these raw edges. All right, so my row of single crochet is done, and I'm back at where I started, down at the bottom. I'm going to do the bottom hemline now, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did for the cuffs. I'm gonna do 5 rows of front post, back post, double crochets. Before I can do that though, I need to do a row. It's not gonna be in the round, because as you can see, we're just gonna be going straight from this end to over here. I'm gonna do a row of double crochet to begin with. And then we're gonna do the front post, back post. So let's start with our double crochets. I'm just gonna begin with a chain 2, 1 and 2. And then I'm gonna just double crochet across. All right, I finished my row of double crochets. I'm gonna chain 2, 1 and 2. Then I'll turn the work around. And now I'm going to do front post, back post, double crochets across. At the end of the row, I'm gonna chain 2 and turn, and then I'm gonna do the same thing again. Front post, back post, double crochets across. And then I'm gonna do a total of 5 rows this way. And to finish off, I'm gonna do the same thing I did for the cuffs. I'm gonna do a row of slip stitches. So, since we already did that for the cuff, I'm gonna zoom through this part, my 5 rows of front post, back post, double crochet, followed by 1 row of slip stitches. Just make sure that when you get to your row of slip stitches, you'll want to be working on the outside of the fabric. So right now I'm working on the outside. The seams are on the inside and I'm working on the outside. You'll want to be working on the outside for the slip stitch row, because if you do it when you're working on the inside of the row, the slip stitches won't be visible and we want to have them on the outside. So just keep that in mind. Actually, I'll show you what I mean. I'll come back here when I get to the end of my front post, back post double crochets before I start my slip stitches. So 5 rows of front post, back post double crochet, and our 6th row will be slip stitches. So I will see you when I get finished with my front post, back post double crochets. All right, it's a little later now and I've finished my rows. It turns out I needed 6 rows to get it to this point, to get it to the point where I am going to be working on the outside of the sweater. So again, seams are on the inside. We want to be doing our last row of slip stitches on the outside here. So I had to do 6 rows to get that. And now I'm going to do my last row of slip stitches, and then we are almost done the cardigan. All we have to do now at this point is the buttons. We have to figure out the buttonholes. Oh no, that's not true. We still have the neckline to do. So we're gonna do the neckline next, and then we'll do the buttons and the buttonholes. And I think I can finish that before dinner time. That's the hope. If not, we might have to do the buttonholes tomorrow. We shall see. But let's get this slip stitch row done. And then I will show you how the cardigan is looking once we get that part done. It's very cute now. I'm very excited to see this done. All right, so here is how our little cardigan is looking now. We're gonna do the exact same thing that we did here up to this top part here. So I'm gonna attach my yarn here. I'm gonna do a round of double crochet, and then I'm gonna do front post, back post, front post, back post, front post, back post. I'm gonna do 5 total. Actually, let's just do 3. So we'll do double crochet, front post, back post, front post, back post, front post, back post, and then we'll do the round of slip stitches last. That is how I'm gonna be finishing off the neckline. But look how cute this is getting with these little sleeveys. Oh, so cute. Just 12 granny squares and then some edge stitching. How cute is that? And then it's gonna be time to figure out how we're gonna get these buttons incorporated. Haven't quite figured that out yet. That might be something I leave till tomorrow, but let me do this neckline now. All right, so here is what it's looking like right now. How cute is this? Little tiny cardigan. And now we've got to figure out the buttons. So I think what we're gonna wanna do is leave that collar as if it's a collar. So we'll leave that open and we'll put the first button just underneath it. And I think I kind of like these gray ones. They're all different thicknesses. These were sent to me by a lovely viewer. Thank you so much for sending these. And I'm thinking what we're gonna do, maybe we only put 1 button on it, you know? What do you think? Maybe just 1? Originally I was thinking 3 different buttons, but I think that might be too big for how small this little cardigan actually is. These 2 are the same, which maybe we do 2 of the same button. But I don't know now, or maybe that one. That one's kind of cute. I made this one with, what is that called? Polymer clay. So that one might be cute. It kind of goes nicely. That one's also cute because it has a little lighthouse on it. Maybe the lighthouse one. And just at the top. What do you think? It definitely needs something to hold it together. 1 doesn't seem like enough though, because then it'll be like this. 1 might be enough, or 2, maybe 2. Yeah, that looks kind of cute. Let's do 2. Okay, so let's do 1 that is a lighthouse, or these 2 dark ones. Then they match because they're the same. They're both these cute little flowers. Let me show you these buttons up close. So we've got these little flower ones. I've got 2 of those. And then I've got this lighthouse one. I really like this lighthouse one. And there's this lighthouse one. And then I've got 2 of the same, this one and that one, sort of reflections of each other. And then also a little beach one as well. The beach one's kind of cute too. Just one beach button. They might be a little too big, but I kind of wanted to use these. They might be too big for a baby thing. Let me check my button stash. These are my grandma's buttons. These are stashed from her buttons. All right, I think I've picked these buttons. Let me show you them. Pretty little, kind of look like beach glass buttons. I think they will be cute. I think we'll just do 3. I don't think we need that 4th one. So what we're gonna do is these are gonna get stitched on, I think about like that. And then on this side, we're gonna do the loops. So I'm already attached on this side with my working yarn. So let me show you how I'm going to make these buttonholes on this project. Let me zoom you in. Okay, sorry, I thought I was recording. I've marked the middle section of the first square, the middle section of the second square, and the seam line, and that's gonna be where my buttons are going to attach. So that's where I need to create the buttonholes. What I'm gonna do is I've got my working yarn still attached from the neckline here. Now what I'm gonna do is finish that slip stitch there, and then I'm going to be coming down this front side with a slip stitch. So I'm gonna slip stitch down this front side until I get to the stitch before my marked stitch. So here's my marked stitch. When I get to here, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna do a chain of maybe 5 or 6. I'll decide when I get there, I'll show you. I'm gonna do a chain in order to create a hole for the button, and then I'll reattach on the stitch after. And then I'll stitch to the next mark, stop there, chain a few, attach at the other end, down, same thing. So let's start. Let's get into it. Okay, so I'm at the stitch just before my marker. I'm gonna chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I think that'll be big enough. I think maybe let's do 6. Let's chain 6. And then I'm gonna reattach at the stitch after my mark stitch with a slip. Just gonna slip stitch to reattach. And then I'm going to keep slip stitching down until I get to my next marker. And there we go. Made it to the next marker, and now I'll chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I'll reattach at the stitch after, and then I'll just slip stitch down to that last marker. And there we go. And now I'm going to chain 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll reattach at the other side. Then I'll just slip stitch down to the bottom. And at the end of this row, I'm just going to secure off my yarn and then weave in the end. And then we're going to have to get these buttons stitched on. Now I'm just going to pull off those pieces of yarn that I used to mark where I wanted those buttonholes. If you have bigger buttons, you might need to do more chain stitches, but you'll see that these buttons fit around that, no problem. And now we're just going to have to match up where they are. And I think I'm gonna need a smaller needle. All right, so I've got my blue yarn to match where I'm stitching this button in. And I'm just going to line up my needle with the middle of the first granny square here. And just, I'm gonna pick a good thick spot and I'm gonna come up through the bottom in that area, just across. I'm gonna come up with my needle and I'm gonna put the button on the needle, and then I'm going to come back down through another nice thick spot of stitching just for my first pass over here for the button. And then I'll flip that upside down and tie that really good and tight. We don't want that button going anywhere. And now I'm going to come back up through the work right around the same area. I'm just going to go around a couple of times through the work to secure that button on nice and tight. And there you go. Then I'll just come back down through the work one final time and do a nice tight double knot there just to tie off that end. And I'll weave in those ends after I'm finished with all of this. Good scissors. All right, and I'm gonna do the same thing to attach a button at the seam and then one more button at the halfway mark of the second granny square. So I'll just do that now. All right, I'm just gonna weave in all of my ends and then guess what? It's gonna be finished, so let me do that. Ta-da! It's done! Look how cute it is, little baby cardigan. What do you think? I'm kind of obsessed with it. I wish I had a little teddy bear or a little doll that I could show you it on, but baby's not here yet, so I can't show you yet. Oh gosh, is it not the cutest thing? Look at the little details around the cuff of this rib stitch, so cute. And I think that layer, that row of slip stitches really does add that nice finishing touch. Very cute. I think we went with the right buttons here. These blue ones look nice. I will use these beautiful buttons for one of my projects, so they will be used, fear not. But what do you think? Do you love this? Are you gonna try to make one too? It's so simple. I mean, the details take a little bit of time, but the main project of it is just granny squares, so I think it's pretty doable for entry-level crochet because you just have to sew together some really cute little granny squares. Oh gosh, look at these details. Look at the slip stitch around the bottom. Oh gosh, I love it. The little collar. And here's what it looks like from the back. So stinking cute. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are you gonna try and make one? Let me know. And if you do, tag me on social media. I'm Last Minute Laura everywhere, and I would love to see what you make. But let me know in the comments down below what you think and what you would like me to make next. I do have quite a few baby things on the go right now, so there are going to be more baby things coming out soon. Also, I just want to take a quick second to say thank you so much to my patrons for supporting me on Patreon. You guys are awesome. You get the access to the Discord by joining Patreon, as well as all of my bullet journal spreads, coloring pages, anything that I make, I share it there for patrons. So definitely check that out if you're new and you have not done so yet, but shout out to all of those of you who are already patrons. I really do appreciate that you guys support me on there. You mean the world. So thank you so much. And that's it for today, friends. That's all I've got for you. We're all finished with today's little baby cardigan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!